Hi, thanks so much for joining in. You're watching Infravisioning on BQ Prime. My name is Alex Matthew. This is the show where we talk about everything related to infrastructure. But I'm going to start with a very different question. When was the last time you used a cycle? Now, chances are, of course, that you joined the group of individuals that was enthused during the pandemic and went out and bought a cycle, even though it was in short supply. But it is more likely that the last time you rode a cycle was in school. Now, you're probably wondering why we're talking about cycles when it comes to an infrastructure conversation, but believe it or not, there are a lot of implications socially as well as for the state of the economy and indeed for infrastructure if you talk about increasing the use of cycles. And to talk about all of this and more, I have with me Vinayak Chatterjee, the founder and the managing trustee at the Infravision Foundation. Thanks so much, Vinayak, for taking the time, as always. When was the last time you rode a cycle?
It was I probably gave up riding a cycle in my mid-20s. But it was around 35 when with my young daughter and family, we were in some resort. And, these resorts have those bicycles for, driving around the beaches and within the resort. That was probably my last in my mid-30s, but that was one sporadic incident. But I must say, it relived memories of youth when one did large amount of kilometerage on bicycles, as I'm sure you and many viewers would have done.
No, certainly. So I used to ride to school every day, and it was another experience, right? But we're talking about a larger mission or a larger implication of increasing the use of cycles, and not necessarily just in the urban areas, but in the smaller towns and in the rural areas as well. What are the key implications here?
Alex, in infrastructure, whenever we talk of transportation, the talk is always about e-vehicles, metro rails, light rail, bus rapid transit systems, railways, highways. Somewhere in the entire discourse, the humble bicycle, forget being discussed, is not even in the consciousness. And that is interesting in a situation where world over, city planners are redesigning city centers to prevent motorized vehicles. Now, here is an interesting urban planning momentum that's gathering, which says they're going to ban motorized vehicles. So what will replace motorized in large tracts of inner city dense, tracks in our cities? It would be pedestrianization. It would be cycles, and possibly for the aged and the physically challenged, it would probably be small electric golf carts to help people go by. In the middle of all this, the biggest, shall we say, alternative would be bicycles. And this is the emergent trend in city planning. Now, if that is so, the $1 million or the billion rupee question for Indian city planners, it is, with all this talk of smart city and redesigning city centers, like Chandni Chowk has become a non-motorized walkway, right? So has the entry to the Golden Temple in Amritsar. You can see the beginnings of stopping motorized vehicle in dense inner cities. We have to revive the conversation about the humble bicycle, because very soon, 20 years ago, nobody would have thought that smoking would be socially unacceptable. Our children would probably never, our grandchildren would never ever see a coal-driven locomotive. Our grandchildren, when they grow up, will probably be bemused that you actually had to put a liquid substance called petrol or diesel in your vehicle, because they will all see electric cars. So, interestingly, as people and as Indians travel all over the world, they are going to see a resurgence of bicycling use in urban centers, which requires a completely fresh mindset in urban city planning. And we'll come to rural later, but back to you.
Yeah. So I'm actually, the question that I have, and I come from Pune as well, because, and this is something that I was thinking about. I was reading an article that you wrote, and the fact that there are cycle lanes that were created, I think either during the Commonwealth Games or the Asian Games or whatever, when the infrastructure of the city got an upgrade, and they weren't used as much. So creating infrastructure is one thing, but I guess it needs a social movement as well What are the economic implications of this? Is there money saved or is there not?
There are development issues and there are economic issues. Let me talk about the development issues first. There are enough studies to show that government programs giving free bicycles to girls have played an important role in ensuring higher female enrollment. There were two issues: toilets for girls in schools and bicycles to help them reach. Particularly in West, while Bihar has become famous for giving cycles to schoolgirls, that's well known in development circles. Even West Bengal has gone one step further and offered cycles to all students of class 10 to 12 in government schools across the state. So evidently, there is a very strong development, shall we say, angle to giving bicycles to school-going children. There is then the economic angle of saying increasing productivity. Now, interestingly, we find that the usage of bicycles in urban India is actually stagnating or going down city by city. Whereas even now, 49% of workers who travel up to 10 kilometers for work in many urban centers do so by walking. Now, and probably the number is equivalent in rural areas. So people are spending a lot of energy, personal energy, burning calories and time in walking to their destinations in suburban, peripheries of cities and evidently across huge rural areas. Now, the issue is that if bicycles were given, it would hugely raise productivity with consequent development fallout to economy as well as to the earning capacity of the individual. Now, think of a Manrega worker who is jobless and is enlisted in a Manrega scheme. He lives in a little hamlet, and to enlist and get a Manrega program, he has to work 15 kilometers, right? His daily wage earning is about 150 rupees after everything is cut and distributed. Let's say. Now, he lives on subsistence. He lives on that 150 rupees a day to buy food, eat, and feed his family. A cycle today, modern cycles are pretty expensive, Alex, not what we used to buy when we were young. Today, a good cycle would cost between 6,000 to 10,000 rupees, a basic black model. Now, how is a Manrega laborer? And as you see, the Manrega figures are huge. The enrollments, they're in lakhs. How would a Manrega type laborer enlisted in that program be expected to buy a 10,000 rupee bicycle without a bank loan? Unfortunately, banks do not give loans to bicycles because they feel that they can't track it and the loan will not be repaid. But they're happy to give a loan for a two-wheeler or a moped. So these are anomalies in the system which require a certain focus and a course correction. But back to you.
Is there a solution then? Because clearly, my thinking is that one, as you pointed out, there would be an improvement in productivity. There are benefits socially as well. That is proven. And one would also think that it would reduce dependence on crude imports if it is a large enough mission or if it finds enough takers. But is there a solution to this problem of affordability or getting people to use the cycle?
See, for the solutions, horses for courses. In urban India, if we honestly don't have easy, dedicated cycling tracks, poor cyclists will get knocked down by errant traffic.
Yes.
And it is a headache. People will say, I'd rather walk.
Yeah.
So somewhere, we will have to force the pace of, cycling. And if it can't be done at the ground level, we may have to invest in lanes which are elevated. But obviously, the cyclist will require a kind of a moving escalator type ramp so that the physical effort of a climb is not there. It goes up a ramp of the kind you find in many airports, not escalators, but a moving walking ramp. Now, solutions like these will have to be found in inner cities and in city planning. And in the extensions of cities where city town planners are giving new plan sanctions for the semi-urban or urban areas, they will have to incorporate seriously cycle tracks. In rural areas, the issue is, I think, the giving cycles on a use basis of a simple amount of 50 paisa a day to gram panchayats on a pay-by-use basis or even free should be part of this CSR mandate so that corporations can give, let us say, 100 bicycles to a panchayat. And the panchayat can, have a system, since they know everybody who's living there, the person takes a cycle in the morning, he returns it, it's 50 paisa a month, multiply by 3, it's 15 rupees per month, 30 paisa a day or 10 paisa a day, 3 rupees to 15 rupees, whatever, it's a small amount. But I am sure men and women, laborers working in brick kilns, working in Manrega, working in construction sites would start using bicycles. That's the solution, I would think, in rural areas. Put it on the CSR list or encourage people to just donate it to panchayats as a part of, the foundation charitable activities for rural affairs. Because people are spending money in reviving water bodies, putting solar rooftops in villages, doing street lighting. So just add bicycles to the list of eligible projects for CSR and even otherwise encourage it. That's the rural solution. But over to you.
No, so and there's also possibility of private sector getting into it, because right here in Bandakurla complex there is the opportunity to rent out electric mopeds, very low powered, of course, but you can take it from one point and you can deliver it in another point. And I think smaller cities or locations in our country which are tourist oriented also have the availability of cycles that you can rent. So there are solutions, I guess, that can be found. And I think the social implications, we're not even discussing the improvement in health that it would entail. So it's an interesting thought. Vinayak, thank you so much for joining in and for delving into that idea.
I want to make a last point.
Yes,
we
please.
Indians are very good at jugaad, right?
Yeah.
So why should we have a mindset that a cycle can only be driven by one person? You see the bikes in Europe, where the tandem bikes, as they're called, where two people drive it together. So if there are a group of girl childs going to school together, why can't a jugaad be actually like a 4-pedal, 4-wheel cycle with 4 school children driving together, and having fun, instead of just a conventional thinking that it should be a 2-wheeler cycle. Yes. All this is in the realm possible. So it's been an interesting discussion because nobody ever discusses bicycles. So thank you very much, Alex, for even allowing me to talk on this subject.
It's my pleasure. And certainly it warrants some thought. Thanks so much, Vinayak, for taking the time. Viewers, that brings us to the end of this very insightful and interesting conversation. And it provides a different lens to think about infrastructure. Let us know what you think in the comment section. And do sign up or subscribe if you think that you'd like more content of this type. This is BQ Prime.